Okay, so today I really want to talk about simplifying things. Like if you want to be scaling in 2025, let's make it really clear and really simple. Hey, Nikki. I feel like it's so easy to kind of like get caught up in all the things and like that's because there are so many things you could be doing. Um, but I want this live stream to be about like, okay, if I wasn't caught up in all the things, if I didn't feel like I had to give my attention 100 places, what's the one thing I would do that would move the needle? So I want you to walk away from this literally knowing what that is. Maybe having decided on that. Maybe you don't decide at this moment, but you're at least clear on what you need to decide. That is my goal for today. So let's get into it. I feel like um, if we just step out for a second, we think about like business on a broader scale, what matters? You need to be able to generate leads. You need to be able to make those conversions. You need to be able to serve them well, right? Um, that's what like runs a business, let's say. Um, and sorry, my brain like malfunctioned for a second in value centered sales. I used to have a program called Value Centered Sales, and what I would teach is start, get, and keep the sale. So how do we start the sale? How do we get the sale? How do we keep the sale? So same thing, like leads, conversions, service, like however you want to say that. Yes, I definitely need simplicity. Brain can't handle complicated right now. I feel you deeply on the brain not being able to handle complicated right now. With you, tracking for that. Hopefully this helps. So, okay, start, get, keep, sale. If you're wanting to scale, what I could probably guess about your business is that you know how to convert, because if you have a business, you're ready to scale, it means you're already getting sales. And you know how to serve. Again, if you have a business, you're ready to scale, means you know how to serve people. Now, might you need to rework some of that to be in alignment for letting more people in or having a greater capacity? Sure. But so many people get so tripped up on that part. And that part's much easier and more comfortable, but they spend so much time on that. You know, I even feel like there's this whole kind of like messaging in our industry that really focuses on that because it's also easier to teach. It's also easier to promise, right? But at the end of the day, if you don't have the front part of that, it doesn't matter how much capacity you have if you don't have the leads pipeline to fill that capacity. It doesn't matter how beautiful your systems are set up or how ready your business is to scale. What matters is, do you have the leads that are going to lead to that? The leads to lead to that. You know what I'm saying? Do you have a pipeline that's going to fill what you're like designing back here? And in my experience, it's better to make sure you have the pipeline before you rework everything. So what I see a lot of people do like wrong, however you want to say that, when they get set up to scale is that what they spend so much time, energy, and attention on is fixing like their capacity, i.e. like changing everything about the back end of the business to let more capacity in. And when they're doing that, they tend to stop focusing on the front end of leads. And so then what can happen is they've made this shift with their business that potentially impacts their income because maybe they're telling their clients they're serving differently, or maybe they're saying, hey, this thing I was going to do, I'm not doing anymore. Or like, hey, don't have space to have you re-sign in this because we're doing that, right? So they're making all these changes to their delivery and maybe even with current clients. And then meanwhile, the lead pipeline isn't there as strongly. And so they're in a really, really bad position. And they're like, what the actual fuck? This whole thing was supposed to be so I can scale. And now I've changed my whole business and I'm not making more money. I'm making less. What's going on? And I know that from the outside looking in, it could seem really obvious. Like in this conversation, we'd be like, well, what's going on? Is they let go of their pipeline? But it's not that obvious when you're doing it, right? When you're doing it, it feels like this is so important and it matters so much and it needs so much thought and so much of your attention. You have to rework so many things with your existing clients, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And in my experience, that's just not very true. Okay. Lacey said that, Dan, pipeline. Yes. In my experience, what truly makes a business scale and better and easier is if you focus on keeping that pipeline strong. And we're going to talk about how to do that. And again, we're going to like make some decisions. if you focus on keeping that pipeline strong, even if you have to build a wait list for a little bit, even if you're like, oh my God, I have so many leads and I don't have as much capacity for them. How do I fix that? That is a way fucking better problem to fix than I have so much capacity and I've one, let go of a lot of my recurring income. And two, I don't have the leads to fill it. Like that puts you in such a bad position. And it's so interesting because what I see a lot of people do in our industry is it's like they're so worried about having people that would want to pay them and not being able to like immediately take payment that they go in the opposite direction. They put themselves in a situation where they're like having nobody wanting to give them immediate payment in favor of having a business that like ultimately could take it, when really the other way around is typically what's going to create the most safety for you and what makes the most sense for you. Do you get what I mean? Right? Where it's like, who cares if you have all this open capacity if you don't have the people that want to pay for it? But again, sometimes we get ourselves so worked up of like, someone wants to pay me and I can't take it. And we get into so much scarcity around that. And we formulate it as like such a giant problem in our business, when in fact, that is the literal best problem you could have in your business. Hey, Sarah. Like, hear me out on that. That is the best problem you could have. It's still a problem. You still need to solve it, but it is the best fucking problem to have. Okay. Because if you're like, all these people want to pay me, again, this is how you're like in demand, right? Like I think I talked about this last week a bit, but it's like being in demand has this natural element to it of not being able to be gotten immediately or consumed immediately. It's like there's a wait, there's a demand, there's, you know, not enough or whatever. I feel like everyone wants to be in demand, but they want to be able to get paid by anyone, anytime, immediately. And it's like these don't always work together. And I know that's annoying. And it's not like how we always want it to be, but they just don't fucking work together like that. I love this. Thank you, Elisa. Chrissy says, is it possible to subconsciously or energetically turn away new clients by already being over capacity? Maybe there's a way to lean into the front end while still making room in the back end. Totally. I think if you have a plan for that, it's fine, right? Like if you're like, oh, I'm building out this. So if they get on a wait list for that, that's totally okay. I think when we energetically turn people away is actually when we're over capacity, when we're saying yes, again, because we won't say no to money. So it's like anyone that comes to me, I'm saying yes to. I'm saying yes to. Trust me, I've played that game at a certain stage in my business, and of just being like, oh yeah, you know, that does turn people away, I think, because you're like, I am so scared that someone else is going to come and I'm not going to say no. So a lot of this revolves around the ability to be like, oh yeah, I can like leave money for a second. I can say no for a second. It's okay if someone doesn't pay me immediately. But if I have a way to keep them warm and to stay engaged with them and to continue to build leads, it's not that scary. If I'm like, this is my chance, if I don't take them right now, they're gone, they're leaving, they're not going to stay connected to me, they're not willing to wait for me, et cetera, et cetera. Like, it's so scary. Allison, that was so good. I feel like this is all is informing my dating life. It is a dating thing too. It's such a parallel, right? Yes. Okay, good. Chrissy, I'm glad it makes sense. But it's such a parallel. Like if you're like the energetics of like human relationships are all the same, right? The attachment kills the vibe. Perfectly said, Chrissy. Like when it's like it has to be you, it has to be now, it's like so grippy. When it's like, okay, like I trust that you're gonna wait for a second, or I trust that like, you know, if I tell you I can't serve you right now, that like you're willing to wait on a wait list, or maybe that just makes you more excited. Or maybe you do hire someone in the meantime and then you come back to me later. Yeah, exactly what Elisa said too. Like it's an abundance mindset. And I feel like it's so funny because people will preach abundance mindset over and over and over. But if you look at how they're telling clients to run their business, it's not abundance mindset at all. It's like a take everything you can get mindset. Right? It's like, don't leave a single dollar on the table. Never have a person that can't pay you immediately. It's so funny. Those same people will also be like, but abundance. It's like, what? No. It's like almost funny. I sometimes watch this stuff and I'm like, are we all saying the same thing? Hello, another parallel feels like politics. I watch this stuff and I'm like, are we all watching the same thing? No. Sorry, I can't stop. Okay, so I feel like that's a thing, is like if you keep opening up more capacity, but you have not built a pipeline to fill it, you are not in a good spot in your business. You are in a very difficult spot. And you're going to feel really frustrated, and you're probably going to see a big dip in your business, and you're going to go, why is this big dip happening? I thought everything was okay. I planned for this. I built this whole system for this. I reworked everything. Why is this happening? I see this with so many people. They'll be like, I had a huge year, and then all of a sudden I had a big dip. Why the fuck is this happening? And it's like, did you rework your programs? Did you try to get like scale for more capacity? Did you let go of the front in the meantime? Yep. Okay, great. That makes sense. Yeah, Lisa, perfect. Case in point, I've waited almost a year for my favorite fitness trainer to get their app out. Like, you're like, I love you. When it comes out, I'm buying, I'm waiting, right? You're not like, well, you had one shot to get my money and now you don't. Or even if you use a different app in the meantime, like, who cares? Right? Like, again, it's just that like scarcity place that we can get ourselves into. So if you need one thing for scaling, what you need is a consistent pipeline to both build leads, right? But also to command attention. Okay. So if you're building the leads by command attention, what I mean is they're also paying attention still, right? It's like they're getting on a wait list, but then they're interacting with you potentially, or seeing your content or on your email list or whatever. And you're building a relationship with them over time, so that when that next thing is ready, they're so excited about it. They're so ready to buy. They're so ready to convert, right? So some people can get the leads, like whatever. They're like, oh, I can run ads, but like they're not mastering like commanding attention to like keep those relationships built. Or they're like doing all of this nurturing or all of this stuff that like nurtures their current people, but they're not getting new people in. And so we really have to have something that does both for us, like a pipeline that builds new leads and keeps their attention. And this is no small feat, honestly, in like today's game, let's say. So it's the thing that most people will turn away from, I think. I think it's the thing that most people will want to do absolutely anything but that. It's so much easier to rework your product suite. It's so much easier to focus on literally everything else, basically, because that takes time, energy, thought, attention. It's probably one of the harder things to actually delegate out. But it is the thing that will keep you feeling safe in your business. It is the thing that will keep your business sustainable. It is the thing that will make you feel like you can ride the waves, right? You know, but I feel like even in a season like this that we're in, of a lot of like instability, what's going to happen, where is this all going, etc. Like, if you know how to do that, you can still have a safety inside of you. If you're like, I haven't mastered that and now things feel even more unstable, you are going to feel quite unstable in your business, right? Yeah, perfectly said, Chrissy. It's a lot, but it's most important, And I think it's just important to say that. And so when I'm talking about like, you are able to command attention, like, I don't mean that it has to be on Instagram, just so we're clear. Like maybe that's how you've chosen to do that if you have an online business, but that is not like the requirement. Like, you could be able to do that through being like the most masterful in-person networker. I have a client that is just chef's kiss at that. It's almost all she does. She's built an incredible high multi six-figure business off of this. She's so goddamn good at it. Like, it doesn't matter. Or it could be a different platform, right? It might be LinkedIn for you. It might be another platform for you. It might be in person. It might be like that you have this amazing referral network that you've built up, and it always does that for you. And then you have this like beautiful way to nurture people once they come in. There's no like perfect version of this, by the way. So I feel like when we say stuff like leads pipeline or command attention, people think it's like ads and Instagram, and it's like doesn't have to be that. But you have to master one of those, right? Like, if it is ads and Instagram, become a devotee, become a master of how to do that. If it's in person, make that your whole thing. Figure out how to be the absolute best like networker out there. Like, you really want to feel like you can nail one of these things to feel that safety and consistency, right? Nikki said, wild question, and feel free to tell me if I'm out of bounds, but do you think people's attachment styles can affect their ability to get leads, command attention, connect with their audience? People, oh, fuck yeah. Not out of bounds at all. I think our attachment styles affect literally everything we do in business, including team, leads, etc. Hands down, 100%. Yeah, totally. Like, I think, like you said, dismissive avoidant as the example, right? So it's like, I think if the idea of, well, like dismissive avoidant, like biggest craving would be like harmony, right? So the idea of going out and commanding attention by doing something that is perhaps creating disharmony, or some people not liking something, would be extremely activating and uncomfortable. Or even just like dismissive avoidant, wants to kind of like be on their own, regulate on their own. So the idea of inviting so many people, what may feel like, into your space and awareness might also feel really triggering. So 100%, I think that's true. I think it always shows up in business. Do I think you can be a dismissive avoidant and still do that? Yes. But I think you have to like be aware of patterns and be willing to work through them. And again, I think that's where people are like, no, it's just easier for me to go rebuild my product suite or whatever, instead of being like, I see that this is the most important thing in my business and I see that I continuously avoid it. How do I lean into that? How do I change that? That's really the work, right? But I think that's a beautiful question. Allison said yes. Because like what I'm saying, if you think about it, right? And this is like an important piece of this conversation too, makes so much logical sense. Nobody running a business goes, I don't want a strong pipeline of leads. I don't want to command attention. I don't want to know that, like people are waiting to buy from me. Nobody would say that. Like there's nothing logical about that, about not wanting that, right? But all the other stuff that comes up with that will convince you otherwise, will convince you that it's better to focus over here, that you really just need to get your conversions from like whatever, this percent to that percent. And in some cases, that's true. After you have the people coming in. If you do not have that, you are stuck. You are at everyone else's mercy. It does not matter how good your product suite is or how beautiful your systems are built or literally any of that. All that matters is, do you know where your next client could come from? And if you do, the rest is a really great way to like keep refining and growing your business. And if you don't, like nobody's going to see it. It doesn't matter. Who cares if you have like the best offer in the world if 5 people are seeing it and you want 5,000 in it? You know what I mean? Like it just doesn't match up. So we have to look at like, what am I avoiding or why am I avoiding this? Maybe it's that you're trying to do a thing that doesn't work for you. I definitely have had clients in that situation where it's like they think there's only one way to do it. And so they think they're supposed to be doing this thing. And actually that thing's like really not best suited to them or their skill set or their ideal client or whatever. And maybe you need to change that. Or maybe you're like, oh, every time I think about having more people around me, I freak the fuck out. Amazing. I need to like figure out what that is, because for my business to work, I need to be able to let that in. What do I need to change? Or maybe I need to like decide I don't want 1 million people in my business. Maybe I don't want the most scalable offer on planet Earth. Like you get to make all these decisions, but like let's not pretend that you're not avoiding that front part if that's what you're doing. You know what I mean? Chrissy says, reminds me of what you always say about solve the right problem. I think about that a lot and have been using that framing to help my clients too. I love that. That's amazing. Thank you, Chrissy. Yeah, totally. I mean, it's just like not lying to ourselves, right? It's like not going, oh, my attention is best spent, insert thing, reworking this page or da 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 when I don't have strong leads. Like, let's just not lie to ourselves in those situations, because that is what stops us from scaling. Is being willing to lie to ourselves, being willing to believe the lie, and being willing to convince ourselves that this thing, because it's easier, is better. Right? That's what our brain wants to do all the time. Like that's not like a failing of someone. It's like kind of how we're wired. It's like, this is better. This is more comfortable. This is easier. Do this. This feels unsafe. This feels scary. It feels weird to put your shit out there. You know what I mean? Because it does. Like I think for the vast majority of people, showing up online in this way, being really clear about who you are and where you stand is a full on edge. I think, especially for most women who were conditioned in a society that like tells us not to do that. Don't be too much, but definitely be enough. Like we're like in this tricky place of how do I make everyone happy? How do I not piss anyone off? And like we have to go against a lot of programming, I think, to show up in the way we want to. And even when we go against all that programming, it can still feel sticky, right? Like I put out this reel today about like, how good it feels to like share your shit and have like people aligned with that. And I shared some like political views and stuff. And I feel like I do that a lot. I feel like I'm really clear on where I stand. And every time I do it, I still am like, oh, like, what am I gonna have to deal with today? Kind of thing. So like it's normal to feel that way. But what I notice when I do stuff like that is that not only does it keep a great pipeline of leads for me, but it's the right leads too. So I think that's like a really important part to say is like, you have to pick the thing that feels best to you and is aligned to you, because not only do you want that like strong leads pipeline and ability to command attention, but you want to serve the people that are the best fit for you through that. And so if you do not consistently have that and you're not consistently building or nurturing that in your business, there will come a time where things are not growing in the way you want them to grow, right? Um, what's most aligned isn't always what's most comfortable or even most exciting. Isn't that the truth? Yeah, it's like putting your whole heart out there. It is like, and I think that's like an interesting part about a lot of the businesses that we're running is like people are trusting us with really big things, whether it's like their business or their relationship or like whatever. So if we're wanting them to put their whole heart on the line for us and share everything with us, like we kind of have to give them something too, but it doesn't mean it's comfortable. It doesn't mean it's easy. I feel like the like marketing right now that's so heavy on personal experience, personal branding, et cetera, is stretchy for most people. Um, and that's why a lot of businesses, I think, are having a harder time right now. Like, yes, a lot shifted. Yes, I think there's a lot up in the air economically and stuff like that. But what I really think happened for a lot of people is that the old kind of maybe like even easier way of marketing is not working anymore. And instead of being like, this is the only thing that matters in my business, a lot of people were like, oh, I'll just go over here. Oh, maybe I need to rework my offer. Maybe I need better team. And they're like over here, over here, over here. And things are going downhill. Can you give me an example of how to bring in leads or keep attention? I think I know what they are for you, but want to wrap my head around it a little. Oh, how I bring in leads and keep attention. Yeah, absolutely. Total side note, but your hair looks so good. Whatever you've been doing is working. Thank you, Elisa. I am so happy about it. I don't know if you can tell, but like I have finally, do you see all this regrowth? I don't know if you can really see it, but like I have all these little shorty pieces. I basically have like a head of hair to here. And then I have my extensions down here. So it is working. I'm so happy for all the freaking vitamins and everything. Thank God. Um, if you guys don't know, I lost like an absolutely obscene amount of hair and I've been working to grow it back. But okay, so how I bring in leads and keep attention. So for me, obviously, and like I want to just preface this because I think it's different. Like I don't need a huge amount of leads in terms of like what makes my business successful. Like I would probably be doing this a bit differently if like I really needed a ton of leads at scale. But basically, in terms of how I bring in leads, I would say I predominantly use social and reels. Sometimes I'll go on other people's podcasts, although I will say I haven't done that in a little while. I used to do that quite a bit, and bring in leads that way. So like get in front of other people's audiences. I think I was also doing that for a while with Dateable, my other business that I sold. I was in front of a lot of other people's audiences talking about data, and that translated. So basically getting in front of other people's audiences is one way I was doing it. And then like specifically reels, right? So that is how I was like creating new leads. We ran ads to that masterclass I did last year too. So that was like one small thing. I don't know. I don't think we'll do that again this year, but maybe. Keep attention. I show up really consistently. I do social that not only creates reach, but like tries to speak to my ideal clients. I show up on here every week. I send a really like well thought out email. I give resources. So I really am like, hey, I have the podcast. I'm like, being in my world is something you're going to want to pay attention to. I'm going to give you a lot of value. I'm going to give you a lot of resources. I'm going to build a relationship with you. I'm going to share really vulnerably with you. I'm going to be as transparent as possible with you. So I really try to create an element of like, okay, yay, you found me. You can expect a lot of awesome things here. And I try to like reinforce that over and over again. And then if you're on the wait list, you also get to submit questions to me. So I even incentivize that more, where it's like if you're on the wait list, you get to submit questions, and I often make videos that we then share and post. So it's a little bit tiered, but it's basically like, if you're in my world, even if you're not working with me, I want to serve you. I want to tell you things. I want to connect with you. I want to talk to you. If people are in my DMs, I'm personally responding, all of that kind of stuff. So I really feel like it sounds quite simple. And I think that it is, but it takes a lot in terms of execution, right? Like, you know, uh, the way I used to do social, I mean, you guys know this. I was like the queen of like repurpose all of your content, repurpose fucking everything. It just doesn't work anymore. Like, and I'm just so happy to be honest about that. Like, it worked so well for the years that it works, and I'm so fucking grateful for that. Miss those. I'm sure y'all do too. And it just doesn't work anymore. So I'm just not doing it anymore, you know? I also really love it now. I love how much more creative I feel around content. I love getting to be more in it, et cetera. I mean, there's benefits, certainly. But the point is, um, it does take energy and focus and attention. And what I think is so interesting about a lot of people is they almost get annoyed by that. Like, they're almost like, oh, I'm like on Instagram for like a couple hours every week, or oh my gosh, content is taking me like 3 hours this week, or like insert thing. I don't know. I'm just making that time frame up. But in my mind, I'm always like, well, yeah, if that's like if it takes me 3 hours to create content and an hour to like answer people, and I'm spending 4 hours a week marketing to have this successful business, like that seems like a fucking no-brainer. Do I have to work at it? Do I have to make time for it? Do I have to make space for it on my calendar? Do I have to make mental space for the creativity of that? Absolutely. But like, I can't imagine what would be more impactful than putting 4 hours toward that each week. I mean, obviously for me, the impact would also be serving my clients since I'm on a revenue share model, but like I'm doing that. That's done. Do you know what I mean? So if I'm going to do something else in my business, nothing else makes more sense than that. And I really feel like that with my team too. And I try to be pretty clear on that. We've been through a lot of team transitions over the last year. And part of that was so I could be like, listen, I can't be in all this minutia. Like, I'm serving my clients or I'm doing our marketing, period. That's the deal. When I felt like I was doing too much more of the other stuff is when I was like, we need to transition because I'm not doing this. Like, there's nothing more important that my time could go to than these two things. So, it's not always easy. It's not always fun. It's not always like, the simplest thing. My brain would find many other things easier in some ways, but it's just what keeps my business running. It's what, like, so when we open applications, I just know there's going to be a lot of applications there. I know that I'm going to have like a really beautiful ability to like choose super aligned clients, et cetera, et cetera. Like, it is always so worth it when I think about it like that, where I feel like, again, if you go really micro and you're like, oh my God, 2 people want to hire me that I can't, whatever, take money from, I'm so frustrated. You're stuck when you're like, oh, that's like what I've been working toward. I want to be in demand. I want to figure this out. How do I keep this going? Because something I'm doing is right. And then, like, on the back end, I will figure that out along the way. Right. But if this part isn't really like lining up, you need to like put your attention there. I said this to one of my clients this week, but I'm like, you need to be like devoted to that. Like, this isn't like I'm sometimes trying to play with this and figure it out. I mess with it here, then I go over here, then I come back to it here. It's like I have blinders on. This has my entire attention until we have this figured out. That means like no new program, no like literally anything until this feels like it's nailed. And obviously it's never perfect. It's never nailed in the sense that like you could close your eyes and sail off into the sunset. But enough that you could trust it, enough that you trust yourself to adapt there, enough that you trust that like what you're doing is like, impactful, working, etc. So that is what I would really like challenge you, call you to think about and focus on right now. What am I doing for that? And am I focused on doing one thing really well? I think another thing that happens always with people is as soon as they think about that, their brains immediately go to, okay, how do I get on every platform, do every single thing, da, 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 da. I need to be on YouTube and TikTok and Instagram and, Substack and it just gets like so big so fast. And if you're in a position where like you are absolutely crushing it on one platform, by all means, like get support in disseminating all of that potentially. But what's really true right now is like different things tend to work for different platforms, different styles, different types of content. And so trying to do all of that at once, right, usually works against you because you're like, well, this one kind of worked on here, but it didn't really work on here. So I don't know what people really like. And, this got this feedback here, but this feedback here. Oh, now I'm confused. This is kind of working. This is kind of working. And it's crazy making, right? Pick something and nail it. If you're picking in person, nail that first. Think of your Instagram as like a fucking side hobby, right? If you're picking Instagram, nail that first. Think of TikTok as a thing you scroll for fun. If you're picking TikTok, amazing. That gets all your focus. Think about Instagram as like this place that you randomly connect with your friend. Like go all in and nail it, right? And if you then want to or have the need to or reason to expand, right? So for me at this juncture, if it's helpful, I feel like I've done a pretty good job of like getting where I want to be on Instagram. I can always get better. I can always improve. But for like the small type of audience that I want to attract, how I want to attract them, my engagement levels, et cetera, I feel really happy with what we created there. If I wanted to continue to expand, I would probably add on another platform right now. But I feel like for the amount of spots we have and the amount of traffic we have, I just don't need to. So I'm not going to right now. But that's how I would do it, if that makes sense, right? I would be like, okay, this is kind of where we want it to be. What's next? What's our next strategy? Or maybe I would do ads or whatever. But I would get one good first because that will inform everything else. Like even ads, right? If you're like, oh, I'm like crushing it on Instagram, I know exactly what my people want. Well, ads are fucking easy at that point, right? Like if they're not, ads are hard because it's still the same thing. It's still just getting in front of people on Instagram. You know what I mean? So that's really like the takeaway, like pick it and stick it, like stick the landing over and over again. Once you are moving along, then change your offer, then rework something in your business. But don't get so focused on that quick grab of like, oh my gosh, someone wanted to pay me and they couldn't. So now every program has to be evergreen or whatever, that you completely lose sight of what is going to run your business. Thanks, Lacey. This is exactly what I needed to hear and such great confirmation of what my intuition was telling me lately. I love that. So good. Pick something and nail it. Best takeaway. Yes. Every time, every time. Seriously. Pick it and stick it. Actually, that was better. I think we should go with pick it and stick it. Lacey said, if you pick one platform, is it just for leads? Because you might also be keeping attention on an email podcast. So for me, email and podcast is nurture. Email is never going to be for leads, obviously, in the sense that like, no one's like randomly stumbling upon my email list. Podcast could be for leads depending on your setup. Like, if you had like a strong guest strategy, your podcast could be for leads too. So that might even be a pick it and stick it thing. Like, okay, I'm going all in on podcasting. I'm going to be a guest. I'm going to have guests. I'm going to get all my leads through podcasting. I'm going to absolutely nail that conversion and then move on. But in keeping attention, like also podcast can be for that too. So for me, that's definitely what my podcast is. It's like, if you find me on Instagram, you're going to see me talking about the podcast a lot. Ideally, you listen, and ideally that's what keeps you warm to convert. I will say, like looking through a lot of my applications, the podcast is what's converting people. It's just almost never the first place they're finding me because of how it's structured. So for sure, that can be like a huge keep attention kind of thing too. but you got to pick your thing and you got to let yourself like get into it and be good at it and care about it. I mean, I really feel like I probably started like focusing on Instagram hard and for the, like for the first time, let's say in very end of October, maybe early November of 2023. So November, December, January, 3. So I've probably been focused on that for a year and 3 months. And I probably would say like I've been doing well for a lot of that time. But in terms of like did it take time? It took a lot of time and energy and testing. And I think it always will. Like Instagram is constantly changing. I probably would not have been at the place to even add something until about a year mark. And I know that feels really annoying. And also don't take my word exactly. Like I have one-on-one clients and a small kid. So, but like but my point is it takes time. Like I think when someone hears something like pick it and focus on it, they're like, okay, it gets 30 days and then I'll see. Okay, it gets 60 days and then I'm going to rework things. Like that is not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about like master it, focus on it, learn from it, pay attention to it. Like truly, like I want to pay attention there a lot. I'm like, what's working? What are people liking? What are big accounts doing? What are they doing wrong? What are people seeming to resonate with? What are they not? Like, it's a thing. Like, it is a whole thing, right? So anyway, I think that's a lot of what happens in our space right now. And I think for a lot of people that started a little while ago, it's different than how our space used to be. It didn't used to feel like it needed so much strategy and attention behind it. And I just think it does now. And, we can fight as much as we want to, but I think it's real. But I also think there are easy ways to do those things. Like it takes more strategy and attention, but I actually feel like some of it's easier, right? Like it takes a lot of strategy and attention, but like also I can film a 5-second reel, put two sentences over it and rock on. So like, there's both and it's not like it has to be the hardest thing you've ever done either, just to be clear. I think there are a lot of parts about it that can be pretty easy. But I do think it's just about being willing to be like in it, devoted to it, mastering it, all of that kind of stuff. So that's the thing. Pick your thing. What are you doing to keep that pipeline warm, to keep that relationship going? How are you going to stick with that? How are you going to give that your attention? How are you going to keep turning your attention there when everything wants to bring it over here and you just want to go make a new offer or insert whatever thing? Like, okay, keep bringing it over here. Keeping like, this is what's going to scale me. This is what's going to create safety. This is what's going to make my business feel like sustainable for a long time to come. If I keep putting too much attention away from that, I'm always going to hit that point where it's like, what happened? Right? I thought this and now I'm seeing this, like, what happened? So that is my thing for you today. If you are already doing that, amazing. Give yourself a ton of credit because it is not easy to do. If you are not doing that, that is what I want you to walk away with today. 1, the commitment to that, and 2, picking a thing and just like declaring it. My thing is this. That's it. That's what I'm doing. That's where my focus is. Like done, declared. Okay. If you do that, I promise you this year is going to feel so much better too. Even with all the instability, even with the like chaos in the world, if you feel like you're getting that, you will feel a sense of safety even if things are more challenging. If you feel like you are not getting it, the chaos is just going to lead to more of those feelings of chaos. So let's just acknowledge that. Okay, that's really what I got today. If anybody wants to like ask a question or tell me what they're picking or just like say it and like hold like the energy or have us hold the energy for you around like, yes, this is your thing. I'm happy to do that. Or if you're watching the replay and you have questions. Oh, I didn't say what our giveaway was today, did I? Let me see. You know what? Did an email even go out today that we were doing this? It must have. I usually look at my, okay, it did. I usually look at my own email. There we go. $100 gift card. Okay, great. So if you're here and you comment, you're eligible to win $100 gift card. I should have said that at the beginning, but I forgot. But we just want to say thank you guys to you for spending time with me. I know this is not always like the easiest on a Monday in the middle of the day to sit here and listen to someone for 43 minutes, but I appreciate you. Okay, great. Thank you, Felicia. Um, Okay, Tracy said yes. Good, good, good. Chrissy said I'm due with my first child in April, so I'm focusing on 6-week intensive and loving serving in them so far. Definitely a change from my 4-month, but flexibility is amazing. Oh, I love that, Chrissy, and congratulations. I'm so excited for you. You're in the home stretch. My son was an April baby too, so I remember being in the home stretch in February. Congratulations. Okay, that's all I got. I hope you guys have a beautiful week. I hope that was helpful, and I will talk to y'all next week. Bye.